Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And of course, here's the meme of the day brought to you by 5mind.com. Well, you know, it seems like a lot of people are jumping to conclusions following the little election day that just happened on November 4th. And if you feed into the Democrat narrative, the conclusion that they want you to jump to is that they're back, baby. We are so back. Out from the gutter rises the Democrat Party to seize the day. But I think that is, of course, number one bullshit.
Number one bullshit. Oh, number one bullshit.
There's a lot of conclusions to draw from this election, but this being the Democrats' moment, as if it's game over and it's time to throw in the flag, raise the white flag, give up GOP, give up MAGA. The communists are in charge now. Yeah, no, absolutely frickin' not. There's a lot to draw a conclusion from, and whatever the Democrats are going on about, that just ain't it. I think if anything, Tuesday wasn't this great moment for the Democrat Party. It was yet again proof of the rot going on in their party. And I got a couple moments here that I think really expose that. I got this moment showing a Fox News anchor's face as she's doing analysis on some of the results. And what's being exposed here, I think, is really one of the most important storylines. The continued moral and cultural rot on the left. They want us to pat them on the back and say good job, but you guys elected some of the most horrible politicians who now represent you. Not to mention the hypocrisy that is the Prop 50 vote in California. I think the ugly truth of the Democrat Party is revealed here. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so let's first play this video.
The yes vote in particular with Prop 50. The reason voters said they voted yes on Prop 50, 82% of the case, 8 out of 10 voters say it was to counter the GOP changes, not because they saw it was the best way to draw those district lines. If you go back and look at those who said no to the vote, they said their reasoning to do so is that they saw this as not the best way to draw those district lines, while only 34% said it was to stop the Democrats from adding seats in Congress.
You know, this whole Prop 50 thing is absolutely wild. As we got closer to Election Day, it was obvious that they were going to get it done. But in the early days, when people were actually polling Californians on their view of whether or not they support Prop 50, or at least support the concept behind Prop 50, Californians overwhelmingly rejected it. And what's interesting is now in the results, you got all these Democrats who voted for it, but when they were asked the actual question whether they supported it, they said they didn't. And now think about how backwards that is. You know, voters claim to love nonpartisan maps, but then in the same breath they vote to nuke the entire concept for now. It just shows the moral rot of the party. And really, that's the tell. They're not voting to do the right thing. They're voting because they're highly ideological. They're people who have been ideologically captured. It's not about doing the right thing. No, it's about orange man bad. They don't care how they win. They don't care what institutions they destroy. As long as they're voting against Donald Trump, that's what matters. And that, of course, is the entire identity of the left. That's why it was totally fine that they were fabricating evidence to create a narrative, the Russia narrative relating to President Trump back during his first term. That's why weaponizing the justice system was totally acceptable, as long as it meant they would stop President Trump. You know, we got these Democrats constantly lecturing us about their superior morality, their education, my democracy. But when it comes to doing it right, it's a constant contradiction. The Democrat Party seems to lack a moral compass. It's nothing but constant hypocrisy. They're always lecturing us about gerrymandering this and gerrymandering that. Republicans and their evil gerrymandering. They're the most gerrymandered party, and now they're gerrymandered literally to the max. California was the last state to engage in this corrupt gerrymandering nonsense. And the same people lecturing us about how evil gerrymandering is now did it to the absolute extreme. Because again, it's not about the ideas, it's about resisting. And obviously the Democrat politicians understand this. You know, they criticized President Trump when he said, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and people would still vote for me. Obviously, this was an extreme, facetious statement. But Democrats said, oh, that was so horrible. But that's literally the Democrats. They'll vote for anyone and anything, as long as it's anti-Trump. Let's cue the second moment, the whole J. Jones phenomenon.
If you look at some of the questions over the J. Jones texts and that scandal from text back to 2022 and how this is affecting the Attorney General's race there, possibility of a split ticket, we asked voters what best describes their opinion of those leaked texts. Almost half found them to be disqualifying. About 1 in 4 said they were concerning, but then another 1 in 4 said they weren't concerned or they hadn't heard enough about it.
You got this guy in Virginia running to be the top cop in the state who fantasized about killing Republicans, killing their children, killing police officers, pissing on their graves, and Democrats rushed to the polls to vote for him. They rallied millions of dollars to revive his campaign from the dirt. They'll vote for anything as long as it means they're hashtag resisting the evil orange man. And it seems like Democrat strategists aren't even necessarily running away from it. James Carville seems to be gleeful and gloating about it.
We won the Attorney General's race. I'm personally going to find a convicted pedophile and run him in a race just to see if he could beat a Republican. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say that convicted pedophile could win. The guy that was running against him ran a pretty good campaign and ran ads. And I mean, the most interesting thing. Okay, drum roll. I'm going to give you all the most interesting piece of news of this cycle, even more interesting in Bucks County. The Republican legislator who released the text lost in day one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a little tidbit. Hey, you got some baggage out there with Trump people. Just know that.
There he is, basically saying that they could get away with running a pedophile because, quote, Republicans have a Trump problem, supposedly. You know, that may be true to a certain extent, but it certainly doesn't apply to general elections now, does it? Kind of hard to argue that there's a Trump problem when Trump just smoked you in the last election and likely would do it again if another election was held today. Now, the reality is, Trump remains the most popular, high-level, high-ticket politician in America today, but there is a disconnect between the parties. And really, during non-presidential elections, there's an issue with galvanizing the Republican base. But Democrats don't have that same issue, it seems, because they have this staunch, extreme, fanatical, radical, left-wing mob that they can mobilize, it seems, at any time, and that is the strategy. Trump, Trump, Trump. Make the election a personality cult in reverse rather than a referendum on actual governance. Don't talk about the issues. Don't talk about crime, schools, energy, cost of living. No, just evil orange man bad. Go from burning Teslas and Tesla dealerships to no kings to government shutdowns, all in the hope to galvanize the craziest parts of the Democrat Party. And Democrats know this. This is what I've been saying for months now. Low propensity voters are not dialed in. Independents are not pumped during off-season elections. And so Dems know that they can bet all in on their fanatical base. The people who have made their entire identity being angry at Donald Trump every single day. And that's the plan, clearly. That's the whole purpose of the shutdown, to appeal to that loud minority of people and make it seem as if that minority, that extreme radical minority, represents the country as the whole. And that's why they kept the government shut down. That's why they are likely going to open the government soon here once they break their previous shutdown record, because they got the result that they wanted. They mobilized the crazies in their party in states where many Republicans have fled. They mobilized their high propensity nutcase voters, and now they're trying to make the case to the country that this now redeems their entire party and that Donald Trump is done and the Democrats have risen. The whole thing's a farce, and it's the most cynical style of politics. This is the brain rot. This is the woke virus. These are people who are so fanatical that they'll literally vote against the thing that they claim to be a moral hazard as long as it makes them feel like they're resisting President Trump. And Democrats are obviously abusing that. They're weaponizing the twisted mental state of your average blue anon individual. And now they're using that to claim that the shutdown worked. As if their party approval isn't sitting in the high 20s. As if they're still not in the dumps nationally. This isn't some blue wave of hope and optimism. This is a highly engineered turnout operation of angry ideologues and chronically online leftist lunatics who show up in low turnout elections and vote for literally anything with a D next to its name. Even the guy who's fantasizing about killing political opponents. And that's the storyline, at least for me. That's what James Carville was talking about. That's what happened in Virginia. That's what Prop 50 exposes. It's not that they won the argument, it's that they've trained a chunk of the electorate to basically enable corruption, enable the worst elements of politics, as long as it hurts President Trump. And the only thing that's on my mind now is these people cannot be rewarded for this behavior. They cannot be rewarded for this shutdown. The American people cannot reward them in 2026. It simply cannot happen. I'm going to remain optimistic. I refuse to believe that what happened on Tuesday is indicative of what's going to happen in 2026. I just got to believe that people are smart smarter than this, that people have more moral clarity than what we saw in the last election, voting for something they know is wrong, something that they know is not going to be temporary in California. They just basically handed the corrupt Democrats in California more power that they're going to continuously abuse. They voted for communism in New York City. They voted for a literal psychopath in Virginia, and we're supposed to sit here and pretend that this was a great victory for the Democrat Party. It was a disgraceful night. The fanatics got their win, and I hope their little victory lap here is short-lived. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.